I love fantasy art. That term is quite vague, and it can mean many different things. I'm more talking about the illustrations of paperback books or tabletop games of the late 1970s to the early 90s. Names such as Jeff Taylor, Michael Whaling, Frank Frazetta, San Julian, Larry Elmore, and others of their ilk are, in my humble opinion, my generation's equivalent to the artists of the Renaissance. Now, it's true that these paintings were primarily used for commercial purposes. However, the talent and the passion elevates these works of art to more than just being cynical promotional material and becoming excellent examples of visual storytelling. Hey guys, Jan here. Welcome back to the Emporium of the Weird. It has been, a hot minute since my last upload, and in the spirits of wanting to get more stuff here, I've decided to do this format of video, that being just me talking about stuff I enjoy on my own. Now, there is something I really want to stress here, because the internet is a very opinionated place. I am not saying that these paintings that I've chose are the best of all time. I'm not the arbiter of quality. So by no means do I want people to think that I'm saying that these are the best things ever, or that they're the best examples of fantasy art. That's frankly quite an arrogant claim. These are all very personal picks that I have here. And why they mean so much to me, well, you'll just have to watch and find out. But that being said, by all means, if there's a painting that means a hell of a lot to you, share it in the comments. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say, just to clear that stuff up. So, without wasting any more time, here's the first painting I wish to discuss. When I was in my second year of academy, I found our school library. This would be one of the places I would frequent the most, browsing the books its shelves had to offer. In a sea of young adult fiction, I came across a small fantasy shelf with a decent collection of black library books. One of them stood out among the rest. William King's Troll Slayer. Dark and gloomy, we see two strangers bracing themselves for combat, as the duo stare into the woods. Jeering beastmen with white glowing eyes brandish their weapons as they prepare for the ambush. And many years later, I have a copy of my own. Now, there are many reasons why I love this cover and why I think it is so effective. And especially now, since obviously I've grown much older and I'm much more involved with Warhammer Fantasy Battles or Old World. You know, I've even started collecting my own army. I appreciate this cover even more. And I think the most important thing that I want to draw attention to is its scale. The stakes it represents is much more smaller. We don't see giant armies clashing with each other. We see two weary travelers completely out of their depth, surrounded not just by the forest and the shroud of the night, but also, of course, literal mutants stalking them. And as a result, we're giving a much more honed-in view of the characters themselves. And all great fantasy artists do this, but Jeff Taylor obviously knocks it out of the park here. Just by looking at these two, you immediately understand not just who they are as people, but also how they are reacting to the situation. Now, to the left here, we have, of course, the swordsman Felix Jaeger. Felix, in the book, is a disgraced son of a noble. He's been disavowed, as a matter of fact, because he killed a man in a duel on the grounds of his university that he attended. Felix is an idealist, a poet, and he's lived a sheltered life within the walls of Altdorf, which is sort of the capital of the main human faction. So as a result, he's not used to be in these situations. And it's just very simple things that Jeff Taylor did here. The fact that he has his hand outstretched with the lantern, desperately trying to get as much visual as he can. And the way he just awkwardly kind of holds his sword. Yeah, this guy has absolutely no idea what he's doing. And that is a complete stark contrast to the Troll Slayer, Gotrek Gurnison. Now, if you at all follow my Instagram, you'll know this. I'm a giant Warhammer Fantasy Dwarfs fan. In my opinion, they're the best fantasy dwarfs out there, no question. They're both a really funny faction, but also a really tragic one as well. They're stubborn, they're very spiteful, but they're also tragic because they are a people in a race that is fading. Their glory days are behind them. Gotrek is a dwarf slayer, and that already kind of highlights sort of both the humorous element of a dwarf, but also the tragic nature of the character as well. The tragedy comes from the fact that as a slayer, he has been condemned to death. He has wronged the honor code of the dwarfs. He can only reclaim his honor if he dies heroically in battle. Now, there is a humor to that of just how insane of a concept that is. You basically have someone who is trying desperately to die, and obviously that creates a lot of friction with Felix because he's obviously trying his best to survive. And this sort of tragic and humorous character is just portrayed perfectly here. His physique is incredibly exaggerated. He is broad-shouldered, his fist is the size of my goddamn face, he has a giant axe bigger than his torso. It's very exaggerated, but just his expression is one of determination and of acceptance. In his head, this is probably where he's going to die, and he's accepted that fact. He's ready for it. Now, of course, technical reasons aside, this was my gateway to Warhammer Fantasy Battles, a setting that I absolutely adore, and one that I think, for the longest time, did not get enough love or recognition for what a great setting it was. But honestly, I don't think I would have ever even considered Warhammer Fantasy to begin with if it wasn't for this book and if it wasn't for this cover. Now, there's a bit of a side tangent, but I just gotta get this off my chest. Can we please get like an animated TV show or a film starring this duo? They're such fantastic characters. They have great chemistry, and honestly, it's their growth they experience throughout the novels. They would be perfect for it, man. I guess for now, I just have to be content with the novels written by William King and the illustrations done by Jeff Taylor. And honestly, that ain't half bad. Last year, I finally got my hands on Carl Edward Wagner's Dark Crusade, a novel featuring the titular Kane. At the outset, Kane and his books seem like the standard sword and sorcery affair, a muscular barbarian hero charging headlong into the unknown. The most iconic of these covers are even painted by Frank Frazetta. The way Frazetta portrays Kane is off slightly. His face is masked in shadows, his eyes dark pools. Something is off-kilter about Kane, and nowhere is this portrayed better than in the cover of Nightwinds. Okay, since we're talking about Kane, I think it's only fitting that we have some more atmospheric lighting. Holy crap. Okay, this might be a bit intense, but, you know, Kane is an intense character, so it kind of fits. In order to understand why I love this piece so much, it's essential to first understand who Kane is in the first place. Kane is a character created by Carl Edward Wagner. Though inspired heavily by Weird Tales and Robert E. Howard, Wagner set out to make Kane very different from Conan. Kane is an immortal wanderer who has lived for centuries. His goal is an ambitious one, to conquer the known world, and rule over it as its sole emperor. There are definitely similarities between the two. A rags of riches type of story, starting off as a humble mercenary who goes on adventures to essentially rise in prominence through sheer grit, determination, and cunning. And let me tell you something, and I want to stress this. Kane is a bastard, okay? Kane is a villainous protagonist through and through. It's all a game to him. He has no allegiances, he has no friends. He's only motivated by greed. Now, I brought up the example of Dark Crusade because that's the only Kane book I actually own physically. In the beginning of the book, Kane joins this kingdom, becomes a general, sees that he can't really take power. After he flees to the kingdom, he joins this dark cult called Sataki. And he trains this professional army to abide this basically doomsday cult into conquering the globe, only for then, at some point, to conquer them. We see the absolute destruction, death, and misery this cult causes, but that does not bother Kane at all. Kane is a man who wants to see his goal seen through, and he'll stop at nothing to do so. To demonstrate why I love Night Winds and why it made such an impression on me when I first viewed it, let's compare and contrast to Frazetta's most iconic sword and sorcery image, the Barbarian. Conan stands in a desolate landscape atop a pile of corpses that, from what we can guess, he caused. Yet despite that, the woman to his right clutches his legs for reassurance. She feels, despite the carnage Conan has caused, she feels safe within him. That's because, ultimately, Conan is a positive character. He falls to common vices, but what makes him a heroic character is when the time calls for it, he's able to overcome all those flaws and become a hero. Now, when we look at Night Winds, it's polar opposite in every way. The landscape, though moody, is a peaceful one, with lush forests and a still lake. Yet the woman cowers and braces herself with a dagger at hand. The painting is one of tense anticipation. Even the horse looks on in horror for the melee that's about to take place. The shadow obscuring Kane's face makes us wonder if he's still looking for the girl, or if he's already found her. I felt too that the posing of the characters, at least to me, harkens back to the painting we compare it to, yet of course the dynamic is very different, and at least to me, portrays very well the subversive nature of Kane as a character. Though both men are in a position of power, one of them uses that power for good, while the other is a predator that's stalking its prey. There are many, many great depictions of Conan in art. Even today, artists are enthralled with Howard's character. Yet in my eyes, none come quite as close to capturing the classic reoccurring foe Conan faces, that being dark sorcery, more than San Julian's Phoenix on the sword. I adore this piece, so much so that I even have a print of it. Some eagle-eyed among you might have even spotted it in the background of my videos. Now, this may be quite controversial here. Phoenix on the sword tops that of the Barbarian, at least to me. The colors are incredibly vibrant here. One of the reasons I love San Julian so much. One of the things that strikes to me out the most is the clash of colors, the deep contrast between the crimson reds and the cool, flowing, light blues and purples. In a way that makes sense, because just as we see the clash of these colors, we see a clash of two archetypes within the sword and sorcery genre. That being of a vile, wicked sorcerer, and that of the barbarian. Now, I don't think I have to explain to a lot of people that Conan is a hardened warrior, and you can kind of see it here. Though not as over-the-top muscular as other depictions of the character, you can still tell that this is a experienced warrior. A well-defined back, his sword is bloodied and chipped. This is clearly a guy who has a lot of combat experience. And just going on physicality alone, he should easily overpower the sorcerer here, who is old and frail. Yet, there is a massive power imbalance, and it is portrayed pretty subtly as well. The smoke goes from a light purple and it sort of fades and sort of whisks around the wizard's blue cloak. The color even seems to change, again showing this unnatural powers that he's able to wield. Even behind the wizard's throne, we even see this eagle-type creatures kind of lurking at the background, talons or claws extended. It adds to this feeling that this sorcerer is being aided by powers beyond our comprehension, and that is putting Conan in a significant disadvantage. But what I also like is that this power imbalance is also physically portrayed by these steps here, by this stone throne here, and Conan is at the very bottom while the wizard's sitting at the very top. In the world of Conan the Barbarian, magic is as powerful as a man of fighting experience, if not more so. Another thing too I also really want to point out here is Conan's posture as well. He's turned away from us, leaning back. In my opinion, Conan here is portrayed in a very vulnerable state. Normally, Conan is portrayed as this conqueror who has overcome his foes. Yet in here, I would say that Conan is almost taken aback by the evil that is presented in front of him. As if out of nowhere, this power has just emerged, and he wasn't prepared for it at all. Yet, as it's always the case in these stories, despite the fear and confusion that has set in, he still grips the sword in his hands and stands his ground. Perhaps the sorcerer's face is not one of confidence, but of malice. Where most grovel and beg, here stands a man who will do neither. Here stands a man, ready for a fight. If Frazetta is synonymous with Conan, then Wayland is synonymous with Elric of Melniboné. I love these 1980s paperback covers Michael Wayland did of this character. They're all fantastic in their own right, but there's one cover that speaks to me the most, because of how perfectly it represents the tragic nature of this doomed hero. And that would be the cover of the final chapter of the Elric saga, Stormbringer. We see a lone Elric, surrounded by ruins. In his hands, he clutches Stormbringer, the black runic blade. At first, this seems to be a typical pose of a glorious conqueror. Yet Elric's expression is that of anguish, as if he's crying out for help. Perhaps it is not he who is the triumphant conqueror, but the blade he is wielding. Hang on, let me get my brew real quick. And you know what, while we're at it, let me switch off my notifications as well. Now, before we discuss why I think Michael Wayland's Stormbringer painting, why it is so effective at portraying who Elric is as a character, we first have to kind of describe who Elric is, because much like Kane, he's not a particularly well-known character, which is a damn shame. So for those who may be out of the loop, let me first introduce you to Elric. And this is actually, funny enough, I actually found this on my shelf. This is Michael Moorcock's The Weird White Wolf. There's another Elric novel. And here we see very prominently Stormbringer. Now, Elric is an albino who's physically weak, and Stormbringer is the blade that gives him power to not only function as a regular human being, but also to give him these incredible combat abilities. Now, the thing that Stormbringer does, much to the chagrin of Elric, is the fact that it sucks the soul out of the person it slays, as we can clearly see right here, which is pretty grim. I wouldn't be a fan of having my soul sucked. That is the dichotomy Elric struggles with. He needs Stormbringer in order to survive the cruel world that he inhabits, even though it is, well, an evil object, right? It is a demon blade, essentially. But the tragedy is, and this is where things get really messed up for our main hero, is the fact that Stormbringer is, well, sentient. And most importantly, whenever it gets hungry and whenever it craves the soul of a victim, it goes for whoever's nearest. And this has resulted in Elric losing not just close friends, but even love interest throughout the book series. And so Elric has this deep hatred towards Stormbringer. Yet, if he were to discard it, chances of him surviving on his own are slim. And I think that is why the final cover of the ending of the Elric saga, Stormbringer here, is such a gut-wrenching piece, at least to me. Because this shows the ultimate effect that Stormbringer causes to Elric, him being completely and utterly alone. And as you can clearly see by his face, he is in anguish about this. He wants desperately to discard this thing that is destroying his life, but is also protecting it. Makes you really wonder, because Elric, because of Stormbringer, yes, it's true, he survives the world, but is he truly living? I mean, that's the ultimate question. And yeah, it's quite depressing, frankly. I don't want to spoil what happens within the Elric novels. In my opinion, much like with Kane, Elric is a super underrated character, and I don't want to spoil much, but man, it's a fitting piece for ultimately a very tragic character. Now, people say Elric is an anti-hero, but honestly, at least the vibe I had reading this book, I kind of feel that I think he's more of a tragic hero, because, especially in this, he legitimately tries to do good and to fix the world that is falling slowly into chaos. And there are just things stacked up against him, and one of those being the very thing that's keeping him alive. So yeah, excellent piece to a very excellent book series. Back in 2016, a young me was on YouTube watching Warhammer guides on 40k 7th edition. As I was watching all manners of videos, be it painting or how to even play the damn game, a video surfaced up on my recommended. It was simply called Why HeroQuest is So Great, made by a YouTuber called Bardic Broadcasts. No exaggeration, this video solidified my love, not just for tabletop gaming, but it also kickstarted off my long journey into discovering sword and sorcery, because I just wanted to know what elements and references did the creators use in making of this game. And he is right. This is a great dungeon crawler. But we're not here to discuss HeroQuest. Maybe for another time. Instead, we're going to talk about the thing every fan of HeroQuest brings up. The thing everyone notices before the box gets cracked open. The artwork.
Look at the muscularity!
And here it is. Les Edwards' HeroQuest. I don't even know where to start, honestly. This is my top 1 fantasy art piece of all time. Even though I'm 22 years old, just looking at this piece here brings me back to when I was 11 years old, first setting my eyes on this thing when I got it for Christmas. I can only imagine what kids in 1989 must have felt when they also, for the first time, got their hands on HeroQuest and had a look at this, frankly, incredible cover. It succeeds at two very important things. It succeeds as a storytelling piece. There's suspense, drama, and a tinge of horror as well. The drama obviously comes from the fact that our heroes are completely surrounded by the forces of darkness. And the horror comes from the fact that, you can kind of see at the background there, that more unknown horrors are coming forth from the darkness. And there's this tension looking at this piece of whether or not these heroes can make it out alive or not. Because as you kind of look to this side of the painting, we have the wizard there. He's using his magical powers to battle against the Chaos Sorcerer here. But as you can see, the power beams here, or whatever you like to call it, it sort of ends in the center here, dead on in the center. A perfect half, showing that it's really up in the air whether or not they can make it out alive. I mean, it's successful at being great promotional art. It's as if this cover here is demanding an answer from you, right? Are you going to let these heroes perish? Are you going to perish in this world of high adventure and magic? It gives me goosebumps every time. And on a personal note as well, this cover led me down a rabbit hole. And even now it inspired me to make a video on this subject, on fantasy art. But as I was looking at this cover, and as I was writing my script, this thought kept popping up in my head over and over again. What draws me to this particular style? And honestly, to this particular era of fantasy art that is long gone. And as I was looking at this cover, this tagline really hit me. HeroQuest, high adventure in a world of magic. That word in particular, world. And I think that really hit me. These artists had this particular mindset that they were creating an alternative reality. This cover is giving you a glimpse of a world that exists. It's not fantasy, it's not make-believe, it exists. This perilous world, this world of adventure, comes to life every time you interact with this game. And I think that's ultimately why I wanted to make this video. It's just to share that with people. If you made it this far into this video, I want to say thank you so much. But yeah, but if, like I said, if you did make it this far, liking or subscribing. I know you hear every YouTuber say that, but, this is not... these are not popular things the algorithm is pushing. These are not well-known subjects or popular subjects. And those two things help to, get more people introduced to stuff like this. Because I think it's cool, and I don't know. I'm sure there are many, many people like me who would absolutely love this stuff, who maybe haven't discovered it yet. But that's about it. This was Jan from Emporium of the Weird. And until our paths cross again, this is me, signing out. Have a good one.